When one gets injured, really the work stress is based on the fatigue stress threshold. You know, it's not just one pitch that takes you down. It's a culmination of things. It's like the turtle on the fence post. How did you get there? I got there through a variety of different people, different experiences, and different situations. So that one pitch could be when you go down, but it's not that one pitch that caused it. It's over time. And so what is your threshold of stress? What is your workload? What is your training? All things that need to be examined. Then we come with the pitch count. The pitch count is an arbitrary number. I understand that there is a number necessary. I understand the reasoning behind it. It's a Band-Aid approach in my humble opinion. It's just much like the 18-year-old versus the guy that's 17 years old and 364 days old. The legal system clearly has boundaries for those individuals in terms of rights and responsibilities. It's all based on one day, or all based on 100 pitches, throwing 100 pitches, or 90 pitches, or 120 pitches, whatever your thoughts are. It's an arbitrary number. We have so many resources. We have better technology. We have pitching coaches. We have video analysis. We have stronger athletes. The list goes on. We've reached epidemic proportions with arm injuries. There's something wrong here. We've got to continue to examine this. So that's why we continue to search and stretch. I have a clip here that I think you'll find interesting. Before I get started on that as well, I mentioned to you that we kind of started this all based on rehab work. Where is the prehab? That's the critical area we should be asking ourselves. What are we doing to prevent this stuff? Not after they're damaged and then we rehab them. And I don't think we're rehabbing them properly as well. And I'll explain that and illustrate that as well. A common problem. I have a video clip, or not a video clip, a picture of Billy Wagner. They call it the valgus stress. Here's Mr. Wagner. Imagine that stress placed on the shoulder and the elbow. That's incredible. We statically cannot take our arms back. I can go this far statically, but when I throw a baseball, it'll go back even further. The hard throwers, look at their arms, that external rotation that you see. It's a wonder how he's not hurt all the time. But typically, a rehab or a progression should follow these steps, wouldn't you think? Okay, 60 to 120, low stress, low range of motion. You continue to work up. 120 plus, medium range of motion, medium stress. 240, a little bit higher range of motion. And then you get to the ultimate, the final, you get your mound work. And that's high range of motion, high stress. The problem is, it seems like the college pro guys, or the pro guys in particular, it seems like they miss steps 2 and 3. They miss steps 2 and 3. They're back to the 120. Well, to me, that would be like saying, how about if an MMA octagon fighter does 50 jumping jacks or 100 jumping jacks to get ready for an octagon fight? I mean, it just doesn't match the end activity doesn't match the training or the preparation. And I see this as being a problem. How can we demand full throttle on the mound when we're not training that to some degree, either through long toss, arm care, or some bullpen mound work? How can we expect that? At the younger levels, we tell kids to go to the bullpen and throw without supervision. Oh, go throw up. The guys throw a few, without a catcher sometimes, throw a few, and then we expect them to go full throttle in a ball game with pressure on the mound. And we wonder why they go down. At the higher levels, they miss steps 2 and 3. Sometimes I think of this picture. We have an oak tree trying to be cultivated in a greenhouse. We need nature to take its course. It's like an oak tree can't grow in a flower pot. We need to let the arms breathe. We need to talk to the arms. We need to let it go. Not an ideal environment. And this picture kind of depicts the tree growing, and these construction people are trying to fix that and work that out a little bit. I think sometimes we feel, all too often, parents, coaches, and players, we just feel so restricted. We feel so confined. We feel compressed. We're disappointed. We gotta allow it to breathe. So that kind of leads us into the 4 phases of preparing to throw correctly. It starts with warming the body up, loosening the arm, raising body temp. We do this with some arm circles. Sometimes the older kids put 2 or 3 baseballs in their hands. Flexed arms and just shoulder high. And then just continue to go bigger and bigger, small circles, big circles. Then we get into the surgical tubing. It is mandatory in our program. I coached at the high school level. I've coached there 26 years. My guys' arms are pretty good. And it's mandatory before they throw, they must do their surgical tubing. They must warm the body up properly. Very, very important. The Jaeger Sports has a core exercise of about 11 of them. It's at booth 602 if you're interested, and it's on the DVD as well. But and we demonstrated that in the breakout session, but there's basically 11 core exercises that you must do, internal, external rotation, etc. Then we get into the technical aspects, the mechanics, a lot of post-stride stuff, and then you get into the long toss. And some of the key points that I just want to highlight, I know that you can read them, but I think all of this stuff lends itself to making sure that there's blood flow, particularly afterwards. Oftentimes we don't do things afterwards. We don't run, we don't do band work afterwards. Well, that's when the body and the area that's heavily used becomes traumatized, and that's when you need to regenerate with fresh blood flow. Very, very important. And the real reason why it's so important is because of recovery. You have to do it right away. You have about a 3-hour window to do that, to maximize and optimize the benefit. So make sure you get blood flow. Anytime you do surgical tubing or exercise, it should be smooth, continuous, and controlled. Anything herky-jerky, to me, is a red flag. We try to avoid that. Quality versus quantity, usually 20 reps or so, with different exercise that varies, maybe 30 seconds. So it depends. Muscle balance and symmetry, very important. When you have asymmetry and you have imbalances and you're not stable with your joints, then things occur. Negative things occur. So we all have to be securing the joints, stabilizing the joints. Posture alignment with the band is very important, and most people forget this too. You must breathe. It's got to be long, fluid breathing anytime you do something like that. So those are some of the key points when we talk about preparing to throw and band work. The arm needs commitment, needs committed attention. You've got to listen to your arm. Tom House coined a phrase that I like. Your body isn't dumb if you let it be smart. Allow your athletes to share some things with you. You as the coach are there to guide them, support them, and challenge them, but also observe. Mandatory, as we talked about, 4 phases. The arm is very important. Scouts have a certain section for arm strength, for arm accuracy. It can be your lifeline. It could be career-ending, career-threatening. So pay attention to the arm. Oftentimes it's neglected. It's not just for pitchers. Obviously, all these things prevent soreness, irritation, also prevents it from breaking down, and certainly builds strength and endurance. You have a quicker recovery period. There are many experts in the field of rehab and orthopedic people that I respect, and they say that you have to go about 240 feet out without pain before you can get on a mound where there's more stress. Yes, sir.
You know, I know you're in the middle of your flow,
yes,
but I got a question for you. It seemed to me at the beginning when you were asking who was representing who,
yes,
there was more youth sports,
yes,
got hands up than anything else. Are those numbers for youth sports? Because I'm thinking like, you know, Little League to like 13, 14, you know, can you adjust those numbers in your presentation now or give us some additional?
I can. Yes, that's a great question. The youth, you definitely have to downsize. The problem with the youth is that they can't control their bodies in terms of a repeatable motion. So those numbers, these numbers are based on high school, college type kids and pros. So those numbers that you're talking about have to be established, and we're in the process of doing that. I could
So
talk.
you don't have anything in your mind right now that you could throw out as like an upper limit?
Well, you have to use, it depends what age group you're talking about and what field you're talking about, and what age group you're talking about, but use the field dimensions that they're accustomed to throwing. All I can say is you try to extend that, and here's what I would suggest to you. When you long toss, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more, the determining factor of how far you go out is based on how accurately and how straight the ball will go. In other words, I can't tell you that right now because it's different for each athlete. I can tell you that when I throw a ball and that ball is straight and I can hit my target 5 times, then that's a distance I can handle. If I'm all over the place and I see that at the high school level, college level, then I've got to back up. So my response is I can't give you a set number. I can tell you how accurately they are. Okay? That's a good question. So those are some things here. I want to show you, I think, what an interesting video clip is of the proper long toss and how it's done. So I think you'll find this interesting.
This freedom from constraints is what allows the arm to gain distance, endurance, and strength. Notice how relaxed the players are behind their throws. Notice how loose their arm action is. As they continue to follow their arms, notice how they keep increasing their distance with minimal effort. All that's really happening is that they are throwing up a little more arc and a little more effort as they move away from their throwing partner. But the key is that they are still stretching their arms. They are not in a hurry to throw aggressively. We want the arms to walk before they jog and jog before they run.
We call it the calm before the storm. This is all about getting the arm stretched out properly, good blood flow, good range of motion.
Again, the goal is to listen to the arm and to focus on stretching. As the players continue to move further away from each other, their focus is on loose arm action and stretching. Even as the players start to make their way to some of these more extreme distances like 360 feet, you can still see an element of stretching in their arm action. They are throwing the ball more aggressively, but they are doing it in a very safe manner because they have opened their arm up in a progressive manner. Even at these long distances, they are still thinking in terms of stretching rather than throwing. Once the players feel that they have reached their maximum distance for the day, we will begin the second phase of our long toss program, the pull down or strengthening phase. The beauty of the pull down phase is that you are actually still thinking about your furthest throw of the day, in this case 360 feet. The object is to still maintain loose arm action. The only thing that changes is the arc of the ball and your release point. We just have to make an adjustment to the focal point. As you watch these pull downs, notice the explosiveness and athleticism behind each throw. It's a true art form when you see a 360-foot throw translated to 240, 120, and eventually 60 feet. This is where a player can truly see how distance throwing translates into velocity. As you watch the players go through their pull downs, you can see how much leverage and explosiveness they are creating. It's also a time where I believe players can hit a completely new level with velocity. This is where it gets fun for the players and coaches.
93. 94. 96. 97.
To me, it's amazing.